This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, I want to welcome you to a special episode of Real Talk. We feel like every episode is special. Some of them are special, I guess, in a way, because we do what I think that we and you, this audience, do better than anybody else, and that is dig into the nitty-gritty, the real talk around political issues, those sort of like firestorm-inducing moments, the stuff that partisans are arguing about, the policy that could shape the direction of trade agreements or elections or what have you. This episode's going to be different. You're going to meet two absolutely remarkable people today that wear their hearts on their sleeves. They're very public about their journeys. In just a moment, Willy Grant hanging out with us. She lost her husband, Glenn, just a short time ago, November 19th. It's December 4th today, not too long ago. And since his diagnosis less than 3 years ago, ALS it was, Willy and Glenn, very public about their journey, every single step of it, including his decision to pursue MAiD, medical assistance in dying. Willy's here as an advocate. She's going to share their personal story, and I guarantee that you're going to learn something. You're going to be challenged today. I know that I already am. And then singer-songwriter Matt Masters will join us. He's got a new album out, released this fall, a new book, Manic Memoir, a bipolar journey in music. Matt, a remarkable fella in his own right. I first hung out with Matt when he was on stage with Barney Bentall, a fundraiser for CASA Mental Health a while ago. You wouldn't believe the type of music that these guys have been producing for years and years. He's the founder of Curbside Concerts. They did super cool stuff through COVID. And Matt, on his own mental health journey, has made a decision to put it in front of everybody for public consumption, education, maybe even edification, if you will. I'm grateful that you're here with us on this episode. It's one I think that's going to challenge us all. We're going to emerge from this, as Gord Downey used to say, richer, having had these two with us today. The episode is happening with the support of Business Career College, and this is a shout out to the senior finance professionals, those of you, the planners that have folks looking to you for good, solid advice on where they're going to put their investments. You know, the next generation of investors, like the young people of today, 3/4 of them tell pollsters that they have some interest in decentralized finance. So they got questions about the blockchain and Bitcoin and NFTs and all that kind of stuff. Your eyes may glaze over on it. Maybe a lack of familiarity with it. Maybe you just think that it's inherently a bad idea, but how much do you actually know about it? Are you learning everything off TikTok? Are you learning everything off YouTube? Why not check out Business Career College's brand new designation? That's the Certified Digital Asset Advisor, the CDAA. It'll allow you to better understand what your clients are seeking information on and probably give your own career a little kickstart as well. That's the Certified Digital Asset Advisor designation, the CDAA, at businesscareercollege.com. The promo code Ryan20 will knock 20% off the investment in your career. That's Ryan20 when you get started at businesscareercollege.com. Well, it's nothing short of an honor to welcome Willy Grant to the Real Talk studio. I think every once in a while we welcome a guest to this square footage, and the entire audience, for a huge portion of it, goes, "Oh my gosh, I know that person. I've seen their posts on social media. I've been following their journey." You probably right now in the Metro Edmonton region, or maybe the province of Alberta, would have a hard time walking around without being recognized. You and your husband, Glenn, may he rest in peace, put your lives on public mode for the last couple of years.
Yes, we did. When the husband was diagnosed with bulbar onset ALS 27 months ago, we didn't know anything about it. And, we, thought if we didn't know anything about it, there are other people who didn't know anything about it, and he wanted to share. And, we started sharing slowly, and it just turned into let's share everything. And, a lot of people gravitated towards the story because, they had a similar journey, or maybe they were a caregiver or going through a terminal illness of their own. And along the way, I found the ALS, or the motor neuron disease community online as well. And they helped us along the way.
Yeah, I mean, some of your stuff, I think about your early posts, I mean, diagnosis, and then, the adjustments you'd be making in life, which got, to be more and more and more significant, obviously. And we'll talk about that. And then ultimately his passing, the day of his passing, November 19th, it felt like there was almost a vigil happening online.
It did. It was amazing. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I probably won't ever again.
Yeah.
And it was truly inspiring that so many people were along with us for the journey and offering support and love and prayers, and we could feel it.
Yeah, you and I are opposite in this way, like people think I'm a very public person. I'm intensely private. The stuff that I release in public is pretty curated, and there's thought that goes into what I'm going to keep to myself, and most times the stuff that really hurts my heart is stuff that I'm not sharing. It struck me that you and Glenn maybe were wired a different way. Like maybe you found comfort in sharing some of the stuff, even some of these low moments were really gut-wrenching.
You know what? The two of us were on this journey together. We've been here in Alberta for about 20 years. We've got a small group of friends. I don't have a lot of family out here. And so sharing also made me feel like I was having a conversation with people about it. And, that helped me. And I think it kept me sane, throughout the entire journey of his illness.
Young guy, right?
Yeah, he was about 57-ish when he was diagnosed.
Relatively healthy, everything was pretty normal. But what symptoms was he experiencing? What first prompted him to go get checked out?
He was going through the drive-thru at Wendy's, and he was trying to order me a lettuce-wrapped burger.
Okay.
And he couldn't say the word lettuce.
All of a sudden.
And he came home, and he's like, I think I've had a stroke. And, so we, carted him off to the hospital. He ended up at the stroke clinic at the U of A, and he was, in fact, diagnosed with a stroke. And that was about 6 months prior to his ALS diagnosis. Bulbar ALS is not very common. I think there's approximately 80 people in this province who have it, and it is almost always misdiagnosed and as a stroke.
So there was no stroke?
No, there was no stroke. It wasn't until 6 months later when we thought the stroke was getting worse, or maybe he had had a second one, that he went back and saw his doctor, and she's like, you didn't have a stroke, and I'm pretty sure you didn't have one the first time around. And she really started pushing for him to see specialists and get all sorts of tests. There isn't a definitive test to say you have ALS. They have to rule everything else out. And so, this is also happening during COVID, earlier days when there were longer wait times, to get in to see specialists, or some people didn't want to see you in person at all. And, you're doing Zoom meetings for medical appointments. And so, our doctor really helped push for these appointments to happen. And he was quickly diagnosed. And then our life, sort of turned around.
Yeah. What were some of the symptoms that were manifesting? He couldn't think of the word lettuce in the Wendy's drive-thru.
He had trouble talking, and he was also experiencing small cramps or like tingly pain, in his limbs.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it at the time, but those are your nerves slowly dying. And so, ALS is a motor neuron disease that, impacts your ability to use your limbs. And with bulbar onset, it impacts your ability to speak, to swallow, to eat. With bulbar onset ALS, it's typically an average lifespan of about 24 months. With limb onset, you get about 3 to 5 years. There are some outliers that might live, a good decade or longer, but that's, slim. And there are, a small group that are gone within months of diagnosis. I feel pretty lucky that we got 27 months together. But at the same time, up until maybe about 2 weeks before he passed, I thought, oh, he's doing okay. You know, maybe we're going to get another few months or another 6 months. And so the end, when it came, it was rather abrupt and you don't really expect it, even though you're trying to plan for it.
Yeah. Here's a tweet that you had put out. People can follow you at Willy Grant. The husband is using something called eye gaze technology. He started texting with his eyes. This was on August 11th that you shared this. Right now, he's just practicing. You say soon he'll be using it to answer phone calls, go online, change the channel on the TV, and more. You were taking everything in stride. He was taking everything in stride.
Yes.
Was he optimistic that this was something he could ride out? I mean, when they give you a diagnosis like that and they put months on it or they put a time frame on it, I can't imagine what that does to his head and heart, what that does to you.
You know, when he was first diagnosed, we knew it was terminal. We knew there was no cure. And he took all of one day to think about what was happening to him. And the next day he said, I'm good. You know, I've had a really good life. I've led an extraordinary life. I've done things that, you know, most people dream of doing. And I'm okay. He had made peace like within 24 hours that he was going to pass away. And he had the attitude of, I'm going to live my best life. I'm going to do all the things that I want to do. He didn't want to get mired down in sadness. He didn't want to think, woe is me, I can't, do anything. And so, he, with the help of, folks on social media, created a bucket list of things to do, places to eat. With bulbar onset, one of his biggest fears early on was that he wouldn't be able to eat. And that was going to come quickly. And so he wanted to eat his way through Edmonton. And so, a lot of friends and followers started making recommendations of the places you'd want to eat at before you die. Yeah. And then restaurants started coming on board and, inviting Glenn to come. Which was fantastic. And then, some people who were following the journey were even sending him gift cards, which I can tell you is really handy.
You're talking complete strangers?
Complete strangers. I can say that's really handy. ALS is a very expensive disease, so their kindness was greatly appreciated.
Talk to us about some of the expenses. It feels tacky to ask, but I'm envisioning that this podcast, this episode is going to find somebody that has like a tingling in one of their joints or that couldn't remember or couldn't say a word a while ago, and this might put this on their radar. You're helping us. I know that this is part of your the reason you're doing all this. Yeah. One of the reasons why you've put this out there for everybody is to help other people on their journeys. Mm-hmm. I mean, what if you could make life even just a tiny little bit easier for another family or another individual? What are some of the costs of ALS that the average person might not think about or realize?
Well, about 2 weeks before he was diagnosed, we knew he was facing a pretty serious diagnosis. We'd thought possibly ALS, maybe MS. We weren't quite sure. We lived in a walk-up condo downtown, and it immediately struck me that he's not going to be able to walk up and down the stairs.
Right.
I got to get out of this condo right away. And, this is earlier days of COVID. The condo market downtown had, hit a all-time low, at least while I've been living down there. And so I had to look for a house that I could purchase, that I could afford on my salary only, that we could renovate. And so, I went back to Alberta Avenue, my old hood.
Yeah,
and
my old hood too, by the way.
And we bought a house. We then started renovating it. All the flooring was ripped out to be replaced to make it a barrier-free home. A bathroom was redone, and we had shared that entire process online too. That took a little bit longer than I'd hoped, but those were two huge expenses. Making the house barrier free and the bathroom. And then you come down to the drugs. My work coverage is, pretty good, but it only covers so much. We ended up paying for a top-up plan through Alberta Blue Cross to try and cover more of his drugs, but not everything was covered, so I was going out of pocket, maybe $1,000 a month.
Just on the drugs alone.
Just on the drugs alone.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get into equipment, and the ALS Society of Alberta is a fantastic resource for anyone who has ALS. They have an equipment loan program there, and you'll get 80 to 90% of your equipment loaned to you through them, which is absolutely fantastic, because over the course of your lifetime with ALS, you might need access to $200,000 or $300,000 worth of equipment.
Jeez.
And some of it's not covered. Things that might have soft covers or materials like that, and so you go out of pocket having to buy those things. And gosh, oh my gosh.
But it's like, listen to how you're talking. Like, you're, first of all, I think it's just remarkable that you're even here, that you're able to articulate your feelings.
I haven't started crying yet.
Having your world rocked.
Yep.
And I just respect you so much for that. But like, you're talking about, like, you got to find a way to move and renovate this place and make it barrier free. And he's navigating, Glenn's navigating, everything that's going on in his mind, and wrapping his mind around his own mortality, and everybody's that's following you, wrapping their mind around their own. And then you're planning all the logistics and the equipment and trying to find a way to finance it all. And like, oh yeah, and by the way, this disease is chipping away at the love of your life. This disease is robbing this guy who's like 60 basically, right?
But you don't, I didn't stop to think about those things very often.
Because you couldn't, maybe?
I couldn't. You don't have time. The disease is moving very quickly. You see changes weekly, sometimes daily. Like, you go from being able to feed yourself to, oh my gosh, I need help. Can you help feed me?
Was there one day in particular that you remember where there was like a real hit, like where something significant changed almost overnight?
Yes.
Is there one that jumps out at you?
There's a few of those. Every time someone with ALS has a fall, they never fully recover. There's a new baseline going forward, and that's hard to watch. You go from, I remember my husband's very first huge fall. We were out at Costco in St. Albert, and I was walking a little bit ahead of him, and all of a sudden I just heard, someone screaming my name and yelling ambulance, and a thud to the ground. And at this point he had lost his ability to use his arms, so he's falling, he knows he's falling, he can't stop himself from falling, and he hits the concrete floor head first. It wasn't pretty to look at, and it was a real eye-opener that, hey, we can't just go out with a cane or a walker anymore, and we need to move to using a wheelchair. And I think that was a big turning point for him as well, because you don't, it becomes real. I can't do these things anymore, and I'm relying on other people or equipment to do it for me.
Yeah. We're talking to Willy Grant. Her husband, Glenn, passed away on the 19th of November of this year. Just amazing to hear your story. I want to let people know that there is a GoFundMe that's been organized by people who care deeply about you to help you navigate this next while, and including some of the costs that you incurred. I've punched it into our live chat. We're going to put the link to the GoFundMe in the show notes on the podcast and on YouTube as well. Or you can just simply Google GoFundMe Willy Grant and you'll find it. I see they've got a goal of $75,000. They've raised almost 50 of it, which is amazing. And I hope that is relieving some of the burden. I mean, nothing's going to take the pain away, obviously. Nothing is going to erase the loss. That's impossible.
But this is life-changing. Like, it will help me pay down. I've got about $130 some odd thousand in ALS related debt.
Wow.
And that's a lot for a single person to
Sure
carry on top of, mortgage and car payments and
course.
all those things. And this money is life-changing for me. I've already used part of the GoFundMe. I've paid off 2 credit cards. I've paid down about 80% of the line of credit we used to renovate our house. And the really remarkable thing is, I had posted about ALS being the bankruptcy disease, and that the average family will go about $250,000 into debt.
$250,000.
Navigating this disease. And I was quite proud of myself. We'd only managed, $100K and change. And a friend of mine saw that and was horrified and wanted to help. And there were other people in the community online talking as well. Let's start a GoFundMe. And so this happened really quickly. And we put down an initial goal of $5,000. I thought, who's going to make any donations to me, to help us out? And I think we hit that within the first hour.
Well, I hope people have been sending you a message loud and clear.
It is, and it's really remarkable. One lady donated $5,000. I don't know her.
You don't know her?
I don't know her. I'm aware of her from social media, and she's been following me, and we recently chatted online, and she is traveling a similar path. She's a caregiver for her husband, and my story resonated with her, and she was in a financial position to help out, and she wanted to. And I mean, things like that just make me cry, and I'm just astounded. There's like over 500 people have made a donation. It's absolutely amazing.
Not just to the GoFundMe either. Like, look at this, a tweet from you on, when was this? The 2nd of December, just a couple of days ago. When internet friends meet in person and one offers support through food. This is community. It's the Burly Chef, who's a good friend of mine as well, Daniel Huber, who obviously dropped, what is that, a lasagna that he dropped off? That
yes,
looks incredible.
He did. It was.
You never met him before?
Not in
He's
person,
just been
no.
following your journey. Yeah. I've got people, by the way, like Tony in our Real Talk live chat, powered by Park Power. She says she's recognizing your post. She says she doesn't just post about ALS. She says she posts culinary posts as well. She's recommending people follow you for that. Says you're a master smoker. Is this right?
I do like to barbecue.
Yeah.
I'm a Kansas City certified barbecue judge.
What?
Yeah.
Actually, for real?
For real.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay. This interview's
That's
all of a sudden now going to be an hour.
Yeah, that's my hobby, smoking meat.
Wow, very cool. You can follow Willy on Twitter and Instagram. We're going to pop in a quick break here. When we come back, what would you guess, if anything, in my introduction as I commenced this conversation? What's the one thing that you think our live chat just exploded on when I happened to mention a choice that Glenn made? What do you think it is? MAiD.
MAiD.
Yeah. Everybody's got an opinion on medical assistance in dying, and you're here willing to talk about it, your own personal journey. That's where we'll go with Willy Grant in just a minute. I want to let you know that this conversation is happening with the support of Canada's Open University. That's Athabasca University. You'll find them online at athabascau.ca. This is a perfect time of year to take 2 seconds to check out how AU works, that AU advantage that everybody talks about. How you can open up your options with the online offerings at Athabasca University. Your only commute to your device, and they've got just a myriad of programs and courses where you're guaranteed to find a fit. Whether you're looking to get certified in HR, maybe you've always wanted to be a scientific researcher, or maybe you've always dreamed of going to get that MBA. Athabasca U can get you on track with all of that. You're selecting your path on the schedule and time frame that works for you. That's athabascau.ca. Our friends at California Closets are ready to bail you out. If you are desperate to find a meaningful gift for the person that has everything, the love of your life, your partner, the one that has all their clothing piled up on the floor, they can never find the snow pants they're looking for, absolute disaster in the boot room, California Closets to the rescue. Why not gift your loved one a free consultation and maybe a little budget to work with? California Closets can work with any budget to make the most of your space with custom organizational systems. You can book that free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. And our friends at Friesen Brothers have you covered. If you are quarterbacking the family's holiday meals this season, I personally recommend their Christmas dinner box. Our family orders it for the most special occasions. The brilliance behind it is that you get all the quality time together, a meal prepared by their Red Seal chefs, and you're doing none of the work. It's a chef-prepared Christmas dinner box that you pop in the oven and reheat. Just $79 per 4 people. So it's more affordable than you can imagine. You can order it online, even use their app, or pick it up at your local Friesen Brothers. Relax until the big day. They're taking orders right now at cateringbyfriesen.com all the way through to the end of the month. That's the Christmas dinner box from our friends at Friesen Brothers. Talking to Willy Grant, recently lost her husband Glenn to ALS and shared their journey with the world by way of social media. I won't forget the day that I read your post where you basically said the husband has decided that it's time to go and we're going to fill out a consultation. Or what sort of a form was it? You said we're filling out forms for MAiD. And I just sat there and took a second and went, whew.
You have to apply. You got to fill out an application form, and it goes to the MAiD group. And we received we received a call back within an hour. And they walked us through the process. There were going to be 2 medical professionals that independently were assigned to my husband's case, and they would sit down with him and have a chat and go from there. And so, the first meeting happened within 1 day. We had asked for his case to be expedited. At the end, he was suffering quite a bit, and he had made his decision and he didn't want to wait around. And so he met with the first doctor. I wasn't there, which is good. This is his decision, not mine. And the doctor sat down with him and walked through, the steps. And she called me afterwards to, summarize it. And then, within maybe another day and a half, he had the second MAiD assessment. And this time I was there. The medical professional had asked that I be a part of it in case I had any questions. And really, they were just checking with him to make sure that it was his decision, that no one else was influencing him, and that he was able to make this decision on his own, cognitively. And I did find out at that second meeting that ALS is one of the diseases that gets an automatic approval, and they're just meeting with you to ensure that you have the mental capacity to make that decision, and that decision has been your choice. Once those 2 consultations were over, we were told we were approved, and my husband could then pick the day. And so, he picked a day a couple days later, Tuesday, November the 19th at 10 a.m. And I had people who were following us online and following the experience with MAiD, and a couple people reached out and said, "Are you going to tell us, when it's happening?" Mm-hmm. And so I thought, sure, why not? I've shared everything else with you about our journey. Why not, share this as well? And so I posted about it, and I wasn't prepared for the response. The morning of, my socials on all platforms were just flooded with pictures of candles and, people offering their prayers or their well wishes for him as he passed on. Mm-hmm. And it was really quite incredible.
Yeah. I was telling you, you had told everybody, like you said, not just the date, but the time. And I remember just pausing for a few moments, and you and I were kind of smiling before we started the cameras up here. And I said, as far as I remember, I never even met Glenn in person. Felt like I knew him. I think everybody that was following along felt like they knew him. And at 10 o'clock on the 19th of November, it was a moment where I just felt there was a collective grief. It really is something remarkable, and more so, I think, because you could feel it. There's this difference where we always say, Twitter's not real life because it gets all nasty and greasy, and people have their elbows up on that social media site. But every once in a while, there's something that happens that just, fills your heart amid tragedy. Yeah. A man has gone, 30 years before we would have liked, to see that life play out, but to have, I would even say thousands of people coming together and feeling something and gathering in community, and for that to manifest itself into actual physical comfort for you on probably the most difficult day of your life, that really is something, isn't it?
It really is. We could feel the love, and it wasn't just locally here in Edmonton. We were getting messages from around the world. I probably had close to 30,000 messages coming to us, and I was reading those to Glenn. The morning of, we were talking, and I was sharing those with him, and he was at peace with his decision, and he was happy to know that so many people cared.
You and Glenn had obviously spoken about MAiD before he let you know that he felt ready. Was that something that you had talked about?
When he was first diagnosed with bulbar onset ALS, he came home and he said, I've got to go see my regular doctor, and we made a little shopping list of things to talk about so he wouldn't forget. And at the top of that list was MAiD. So he's diagnosed. He's at his doctor's within a week. He's asking, do I qualify for MAiD? He had made the decision himself, 27 months prior, that this was the pathway that he was going to go down.
Did you have an opinion at that time on MAiD? Did you have strong feelings about it either way?
I felt that I didn't want to see him suffer. I didn't want him to be suffering. So I supported his decision. But, it was his decision.
On our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider, Noob Try Again says, my partner works with many people in these types of situations. We have family members experiencing chronic disease, and they have chosen MAiD. It's never easy, but it's a beautiful gift in a tough time. Some folks are arguing here. I might actually just say sharing their strong opinions on it. I don't know that anybody's really arguing about it, but Sylvia says, I've also seen these experiences both professionally and personally. Contrarians in conversations like these are just, discussion's not going to change people's minds. Have you had people send you messages in opposition to Glenn's choice? Have you had people critical of it?
We've had a few people, and one was just adamant that, MAiD shouldn't be available to anyone. This is a person who was actually in my home picking up all of our ALS equipment that we had borrowed, after he had passed. And so I was a little...
Really?
It wasn't the right place and time for that conversation, but I dug in and I had a conversation with him about Glenn's journey and all of the different steps. I mean, imagine not being able to talk, not being able to eat, not being able to communicate with your loved ones, not being able to use your arms or your legs. You can't walk. You can't go to the bathroom on your own. And you're basically left with your brain is functional, but your body isn't, and you're trapped, and it's not a place anyone wants to be.
Do you, MAiD, it's sort of like, feels still like a relatively new healthcare option to Canadians, relatively speaking, but it feels like more and more people now have some personal experience in that more and more people now know someone that either has chosen MAiD or will be choosing MAiD. And I think that it's, and I'm not saying using the word forcing in a bad way, but I think it's forcing people to reconcile how they feel about it. Like more and more people are all of a sudden, an issue becomes more complicated in some circumstances, or maybe you achieve more clarity in some circumstances when it lands in your own backyard. And when a terminal condition or health challenge is impacting somebody that you deeply care about or that you love. And I think that sometimes changes people's minds. Do you see that?
I can see that happening, and there's a shift. People, as you said, they're starting to be touched somehow in their lives by someone who has undergone MAiD, and they probably see it as dying with dignity, being able to go out on your own terms, and not having to have a prolonged death.
In the live chat, a whole bunch of people just sending you love. That probably feels like just part of your new normal now. I hope that you are being showered in messages of love and support every single day.
I am.
I see it.
Yeah.
You're always on my timeline. Every time I check my social media, there's Willy, which is a good thing. Sika sings. I don't know if you know Sika. Does this wonderful, beautiful children's messaging and books and singing and everything. So she's watching us live on YouTube right now. She says, so much love to your amazing guest, Willy. She says, we've lost my uncle as well as 2 very close family members to ALS. It's a vicious disease.
It's terrible.
It's the worst. My wife, Carrie, her beloved grandmother fought and ultimately passed away due to ALS, and families that have experienced it. You're never going to have to explain to an ALS family your choices. We've got other people. Tracy D says, when we're talking about MAiD, she says, as with so many things there, but for the grace of God, go I. Sharon says, my sister chose medical assistance in dying. Sharon, we're sorry for your loss. She says, my brother had a DNR, do not resuscitate at that time. She says it's all about them and their choices.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. And, no one else belongs in the conversation other than the person making the decision and their doctor.
Yeah. Yeah. I just am so grateful that you made time to talk to us today. You're a truly remarkable person. I promise that to the audience, and it's obviously evident. And I think some people are maybe, including me, blown away to see that you're like back at it. You're out there. You're attending these. What are these outdoor coffee things that you're going to? Everybody rides their bike and has coffee in like minus 15
in the
middle of Edmonton winter. Coffee outside.
Yeah, it started a few for me anyway. A few weeks before he passed.
Yeah.
I was at that point working from home, so I could help be there to offer some more care. And I wanted to get out of the house and be around, adults. And it's the one time of day where he was still asleep. And so I could risk running out. And so I take my dog Lucy and we go down to the park. And yes, it's a bunch of cyclists. And, here I don't cycle. But, they seem to have adopted me okay. I've forced myself upon them. And
this is how they get in. You're going to be buying a bike before you know it. And
Lucy loves it, and every Friday morning she's waiting at the door like, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the power of community is amazing. And the community that you cultivated, I don't think probably, 27 months ago when you started sharing about this, that you thought that ultimately, you'd have hundreds, if not thousands of people that are feeling a very close connection to you and be doing talk shows where you're going to be connecting with other people that you have not met yet, but they may reach out to you based on the courage you're showing.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
Proud to call you a friend. I want to remind this audience that if Willy's story is resonating with you, you can check out her GoFundMe. We'll have that in the show notes. And also make sure you check out and support the ALS Society where you can. I know that that's been where you've obviously found a huge amount of support as well. And we like to shine the light on these groups when we can and remind people that there are resources out there. Much love to you, Willy. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. You can find Willy on X. You can find her on Instagram, and really, truly a wonderful follow. Coming up in just a moment, musician Matt Masters is going to talk to us about his book, Manic Memoir, A Bipolar Journey in Music. He's got a new album out as well. But before he does, every Wednesday, midweek, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper, we have a chance to let you know about what's happening in Jasper National Park in the Rocky Mountains. And a couple of things going on. First off, if you hadn't yet heard, Marmot Basin is open. They've got a new chair open, and they're getting a whole bunch of snow as well, which is super exciting. Our friends at Marmot want to remind you, you can check out skimarmot.com for all the details on their snowfall, all the details on the forecast and the new chairs as well. Look at this, as we're talking today, -2. -2. That's unbelievable. A ton of new snow. They've got 6 of their 7 lifts operating, and there's also a way that you can ride for half price all season long with the Marmot Escape Card. This is what we do. It's the best deal in the Canadian Rockies, and it's back for this season. There's no catch either. You grab the Marmot Escape Card for $99, and they're going to knock 50% off your lift tickets for the rest of the season, all season, no blackout dates. Plus, you can find up to 30% off on select accommodations in Jasper. It's a wonderful deal at skimarmot.com. And if you're looking for a wonderful stocking stuffer as well, our friends at the Crisis Team Society, with support from the Jasper Volunteer Fire Brigade, are presenting the 2025 Fundraising Firefighter Calendar. Johnny, this one's a little bit different, though. You know, sometimes you got the firefighter calendar where these guys have like their 8-packs and they got pecs.
I was just going to say,
pecs popping off, and you know,
for JASPER Memories. I don't know if we're going to talk about tarps off.
Feels like we maybe need a little bit more of a rock and roll vibe than this, but this is a really neat. We smile amid the challenges that this community has experienced due to that wildfire at the end of July, but they've got these incredible photos that they've put out featuring these firefighters out in that terrain, the terrain that is, well, it's recovering from that big blaze. And so you can check out this fundraising firefighter calendar. It shows some of the bravest members of this community enjoying beautiful Jasper National Park. Calendars are just $25, and by spreading the word, you contribute to a meaningful cause. And you show appreciation as well for local heroes on that volunteer fire brigade. Every single dollar raised will support the Crisis Team Society's efforts to support individuals that are experiencing trauma and tragedy in times of crisis. Not just fire-related, but that's obviously a big part of it. You can check out more details and purchase your calendar, or 10 of them today, by visiting crisisteamsociety.ca. We'll put that in the show notes as well. MyJasper Memories is proudly presented weekly on Real Talk by our good friends at Tourism Jasper.
How many nights I've sat and wondered, would we ever love again? And how my heart is slowly breaking each time I'm introduced to your friend. How many years until you love me like you did?
I could listen to Matt Masters sing all day long. What an honor and pleasure it is to welcome the country and western musician, co-founder of Curbside Concerts, to Real Talk. You made the trip all the way up from Calgary to talk to us today. Welcome to the studio, pal. We've been looking forward to it.
Thanks, Ryan. It's really exciting to be here.
Yeah, let me get you nice and close to that microphone. People need to hear your dulcet tones. This is this new album, Bergener, and your new book as well. A bit of a thing for you, because although you're a music veteran and you've been on stages 100 days a year for as long as anybody can remember, you've taken some time off stage. You've taken some time away from performing for quite some time.
Yeah, this year has been a bit of a different journey for me. At the end of last year, I finished writing this book, and then I realized I was having a bit of a mental health break. I just needed to take a step back. And so starting last December, I pretty much put the brakes on my regular life, which is, gigging 2 and 3 times a week, singing in clubs and bars and stuff around Alberta and Western Canada. And instead, I decided to make a journey of prioritizing my needs in terms of just mental wellness. I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder 4 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. And I'm 48 years old, and so it put a new lens on some of the struggles I was having personal, professional, and so I decided to kind of really take hold of it this year and be responsible, take the break that I needed.
People in particular, I mean, I think across Alberta's or Western Canada's music scene will recognize you, obviously, in Calgary, a 25-year career. You've been on 10 international tours. You led the house band at the legendary King Eddie for 5 years. You've played at the Saddle Dome for the Calgary Flames. You've been a member for almost 20 years of Barney Bental's Caribou Express, which is one of the most fun bands. You're kind of like you're kind of like the band leader. Just no disrespect to Barney.
Let's say co-host.
Yeah. And I had a chance to kind of collaborate with you on a fundraiser for Casa Mental Health. What was that, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And watching you perform is just, there's something, you and Barney have this chemistry that's just amazing. You guys have raised over $5 million through your shows for Canadian charities.
Yeah.
At what point, you're pedal to the metal on all this stuff. I guess like exhaustion might be a regular thing. People might feel some anxiety when they're always burning the candle at both ends. But when did you start to feel like maybe it was something more than just being tired?
Well, so I started professionally working as a musician about 25 years ago. And what that has meant is every weekend, every summer weekend, you don't really take time off when you're in the music world, especially like for me, I work as an independent artist, which means I manage my own career. So there's, the work side of it as well as the performance side of it. And I just realized that I had never taken like a holiday. Like I've never, ever taken a holiday. If I would travel somewhere, I would be performing, because sometimes if you're traveling to an exotic location, you can kind of feel like it's a bit of a holiday because, maybe you have some travel days or some days off. But for me, just to acknowledge that I'd been grinding for so long, with Barney doing our tour each year, with the regular Friday dates that I was doing at the King Eddie, and then just everything else that came with it. Running curbside concerts. My wife and I have a music booking agency, Curbside Concerts, that we run as our daily day jobs. And it just got to that point where I realized that I was just burning out, and I was my behavior was changing. I was becoming really angry a lot. And so it impacted, I have 3 little kids. And so it changed the way, I noticed that I was changing the way I was being a parent, and it wasn't cool, And so, like right after our tour with Barney last year, so 2023's tour, I realized that it was time for me to take a step back.
How much did you know about bipolar disorder before diagnosis?
Nothing. I knew nothing about it. I'm not someone who was raised being really aware of kind of say mental wellness. In my life, I had a few things happen to me, and I talk about this in the book, where I didn't seek mental health supports. For example, I have alopecia. I am a hairless person, so I have a hair loss disease. And one day, October 15th, 2011, all my hair fell out in a hotel room in Niagara Falls.
In one day?
Yeah, I was having a shower, and my mustache fell off, my beard fell off, and half my head went bald. And I thought I was dying. It turned out,
can't imagine.
It was pretty stressful. I mean, I sat down and cried a lot, but I also had a gig to play. I was on tour, so I put my cowboy hat on. I went downstairs. My band was like, "You shaved your face," but and then I went up to the Yukon for a week of shows. When I came home from that, I didn't think to reach out for mental health supports. It just wasn't a thing I thought of. And I just had the 10th anniversary of my dad's passing. My dad died from brain cancer 10 years ago.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was tough. I was 38 when he died, and again, I wasn't kind of conditioned to ask for mental health supports. I'd gone through this great loss, and I had a great dad, so he was really involved with my life and supportive and all these great things. But I didn't know how to help myself grieve, and so. From the hair loss to the death of my dad, we had a home invasion about 8 years ago.
What?
Like all these things had happened, but I didn't know what to do with it. I just kind of held it, And so then I started just breaking down, and it kind of the way it kind of revealed itself was often in me getting angry at my kids, and it just wasn't acceptable. And so we had to figure out what was going on. And so the diagnosis of bipolar actually for me felt like a bit of a roadmap, because suddenly there were some pieces of my behavior that made some sense. It was like, oh, well, this happened and that happened. And so then I got angry. Well, that kind of makes sense because of the way it is, you know. So yeah, I've been really open about my journey through bipolar because I just feel that as a musician, as an artist, I think that you have a responsibility to the community to be authentic. And people who are looking at me and seeing changes, like, why did you cancel this show? Or why did you cancel that tour? I thought it was important that they understood my background, my reasoning, you know. I mean, and so I just decided to be really open about my journey with bipolar, whether that meant talking about doctor's appointments, or last February I ended up in the hospital. And I thought that I would be really open about that too, because it just seemed like, you know, it's a bit mysterious, the world of mental health or bipolar, or in my case, you know, getting admitted to the psych ward.
Yeah.
You know, those are like, you kind of hear about, a psychiatric, you know, ward, but what does it mean? Like, what does it look like? You know, for me, it was 6 months of meetings and therapy and stuff like that. Challenging, but ultimately helpful. You know, so the journey into bipolar for me has been, it's weird to say, but a little bit welcomed, because it made some sense of these confusing times.
Did you have, how long did it take you to decide to put your journey into a book? Because it's one thing to be open and like tell your family and friends about it, or to maybe disclose something on social media, but to actually, I mean, this book written during, as in your own words, during a manic episode in the late summer of 2023, this is a whole new level. This is like a journal entry that you're sharing with whoever wants to buy the book.
Yeah, I didn't have a plan to write a book. I was finishing an artist in residency program in Calgary 2 summers ago, where my goals were around like audiovisual recording. I was finishing up actually background vocals for my album, and then I had 1 day left of this residency and nothing to do, and so I was in a unique spot. Calgary has this kind of an arts incubator program, and they had this little house in the Eau Claire market. So right in the downtown area, this 100-year-old, it was the office of a logging company 100 years ago. And since then it was a restaurant and other things, but during the renovations and changes in that area, this little house became an arts zone. You know, it was a place for artists to come and do like residencies, that kind of thing. Anyways, 1 block to my left and 1 block to my right were skyscrapers that were designed by my father. He was a big-time architect. So I was on this property, surrounded by my father's energy. And I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna write down some memories. Like I'm thinking about my dad, and I feel his energy in this space. So I'm gonna start writing some memories about my dad. And I started writing some memories about my dad. And then for 6 weeks, I didn't stop. And I wrote 180 almost pages. Just like every chance I got, I would be writing. You know, I'd finished cooking dinner and I'd write something before we ate dinner. And so it was this manic episode. I've always struggled with manic versus depressive. I get the depressed side really well, but I wrote this book like nonstop. I just started on a day and then didn't stop until it was done.
Almost obsessively.
Yeah, totally obsessively, you know. And chatting with a friend of mine who is a social worker about manic episodes, in the middle of it, he was like, have you been doing anything lately that's kind of, you know, like abnormal or obsessive? And I was like, well, I wrote a journal for like 4.5 hours today. Does that count?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I think you're experiencing a manic episode, you know? So it was really interesting, you know, cause I didn't have any intention to write a book, but like you say, once you put it out there, it is like committing to this story. You know, everyone can read it now. Anyone can read, and it's like, it has my ups and downs. It has some pretty low points. You know, there's spots that I'm not proud of. There's things I've done in my life that I regret, like everybody.
Like everybody.
Yeah. But there was definitely like a freeing feeling of, once I put it down, I felt like, okay, now my story's been told. Like, I don't have to be ashamed of those things or afraid of those things. I don't have to hide the fact that I have bipolar. Like, I'm still a great dad. You know, I'm an award-winning musician. Our Curbside Concerts company has won awards, and we've paid artists $1 million in 4 years. Like,
Really?
Yeah. We've paid artists $1 million in 4 years for performing locally. You know, so like I've done all these great things. I'm a successful guy, but I'm totally sick with bipolar, like every single day. You know, that never changes. So it's just about being honest. You know, it's about being authentic to your community. You know.
I'm like part of the problem in the sense of like, I think, you know, we talk a lot about mental health. It's been a tough year for us on the show, losing somebody very important to us who wrestled with mental health challenges. And we're making a commitment to have more conversations about mental health and men's mental health in particular. Yeah. But also like, we talk about stigma or like not seeing signs or whatever. And I'll be honest, like when you started sharing more publicly about your journey, I was like, Matt? Because I'm just like, I see you as like, I'm not comparing your musical style, but you have like a Dwight Yoakam kind of a presence on stage. You've got this real stylized Western, kind of like a 1950s Las Vegas kind of a vibe. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're nailing it.
Yeah, like that's you.
Yeah.
And you're up there with Barney Bentall. I'm like, this guy's the coolest shit going. And he's got it all together. And he's founded this curbside concerts through COVID. And Matt Masters, everybody in Calgary knows who he is. And like, why was I surprised that you would struggle with mental health? But I was, to be honest with you.
I get it.
Right?
I mean, like, and, you know, like, especially when you're a stage person, you present an aura.
Like you said with your alopecia, you just lost your beard and everything, and then you go out there and you're probably all smiles.
Oh my God, that was the hardest tour. You know, like, because I lost my hair October 15th. I was on tour with I have two bands. I have my Calgary band, and then I had my Barney Bentall band. And then I had to go on tour with Barney, and I showed up for tour, and everyone was like, "You're bald,
right?
You have no eyebrows anymore? Like, what the heck?"
Right?
You know, and I remember,
I'm not laughing. It's just
it was a challenging tour. You know what's funny is that the next summer, so the summer of 2012, was when I first needed to wear glasses. And the eye doctor was like, "Oh, do you want something with a thin frame or an invisible frame?" And I was like, "No, I want the thickest frame because I have no eyebrows."
Yeah.
And so having a nice line across my forehead where my eyebrows would be from my glasses is something I really like.
I never noticed you didn't have
No, you
eyebrows,
don't
by the way.
notice it.
No, you don't
because
know. The glasses are working. The glasses are working.
Totally makes a difference.
I love how our conversation can jump all over the place, but like alopecia, like is that I don't know anything about it.
Sure.
Is that something that just comes up out of nowhere? Like, did you have it your whole life? But
it's related to for me it's like autoimmune disease.
Okay.
So alopecia is an autoimmune disease. I also have hypothyroid disease. I have celiac disease. So I'm kind of like,
geez, buddy.
Yeah, I know. My thyroid gland is really not strong. And those are all kind of the same family of diseases. So because as a lifelong person with hypothyroid, I was kind of a prime candidate for alopecia universalis. I had never heard of it either, you know. I honestly thought I was just gonna die that day, you know, because like all my hair fell out. But it turns out alopecia is really like, it's serious, but it's not a life ender.
Right.
You know, like people with alopecia have long, healthy lives. There's little weird things about it, like with no eyebrows or eyelashes, your eyes get exposed to more sunlight as an alopecian. So your eyes struggle a little bit, which, and my fingernails aren't the greatest. You know, like there's little weird things about alopecia.
Little things, but they're probably not like the tiniest things to you.
Well,
like
they matter on a daily basis, but like, you know, you're not gonna, it's not.
You're not gonna write a book about alopecia.
No, I wasn't ready to. No.
Though you could have. You're a great writer.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks.
You could write a book about whatever you like.
Alopecia is a weird one for me, you know, but it's like, luckily, you know, I got my alopecia when I was almost 40. I came from a balding family. Like, you know, like I was going to be a bald man no matter what. Like that was the history of the men in my family is bald people, you know? So I was I wasn't exactly like a super hairy dude.
But it's nice to enjoy the hair while you have it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to turn it off on a switch, you know, you want to ease out. But one thing I will say is that alopecia actually makes me look younger because I don't have any grays. Because, you know, like I'd have gray and white hair if I had hair still, but because I don't have any hair, people still suspect that maybe I'd have brown hair, maybe I'd have black hair. No,
they don't know.
It'd be all gray and white, but like, no, I'm just a bald guy.
Have you found when you I mean, you released this book, I mean, there's not like a chapter or a paragraph about bipolar. It's called Manic Memoir. I mean, a bipolar journey in music. This is what it's about.
Yeah.
Have you experienced stigma? Have you experienced challenges? Were you nervous to put it out there in that the impression that people had of Matt Masters and the co-host with Barney Bentall and the founder of this business and that maybe people might get a little skittish or weirded out or hesitant to book you?
I've been lucky in that respect. As a relatively self-employed person, I don't get too much stigma because I'm able to manage and control most of the business relationships I enter into. However, I'll say for sure, there's been like, once you acknowledge that you have mental illness, it's just a different relationship after that. You know, I've struggled my whole adult life with cannabis. I've struggled with addiction to cannabis, and it's like I've tried to stop smoking now, and it's like once you decide to quit an addiction, you've entered recovery, and once you've entered recovery, you never leave it. It colors your journey from now on, and it's the same with mental health. Like once you acknowledge that you struggle with mental health, it's not recovery that you're in, but you're in an acknowledged journey. And once you position yourself as a person in that journey, you're never going to get out of it. There's no end to it. Like, bipolar doesn't go away, and so once you openly address the reality that you're facing, then it colors the way others see you. And for the most part, your community, the people around you love you and they're going to treat you well, but they'll be the odd person where they're like, maybe I'll be a bit colder or maybe a bit more distant, or maybe I'll be a bit nervous or changing what they say. But, you got to be true to yourself. That's one of the reasons I'm an artist, is because I think it's really important to be true to yourself. And like the way that the way that you succeed as an artist is not about finances. It's about truth, and if you can reflect your community with truth and honesty, and if you can be honest with your own struggles, then you're able to create art at a higher level because, you have integrity. And so for me, I had to acknowledge my bipolar. I had to acknowledge my cannabis addiction. I had to acknowledge all these things so that it makes sense who I am as an artist, and that's one of the things of my new recording, is that some of the songs are different than what I've done in the past. In the past, I've been more like a guy who sings a song about a train or about a flood or a river. But this album, I focus talking about relationships I've lost, about relationships I've worked on, about the who I am as a person. And there was a personal element that I felt I felt like I'd achieved it. I didn't think I wasn't there as a writer in the past. But with this album, with this book, which kind of happened simultaneously, I finally felt like my writing achieved this personal truth. And that's why I titled my album Bergener, because which is my legal last name. It's an album about me. It's not an album about a farmer in a field in a flood anymore. It's not an album about like a hypothetical character. No, these are just stories about me. And I haven't, had to work to get that. I've been an artist 25 years. I've done 7 albums, but I didn't achieve that yet until this project.
Amazing. It was your first wasn't it your first album in more than a decade?
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah,
since 2011, I think.
That's correct. My last album of original music was a long time ago.
Yeah, people can check out mattmasters.ca for more on that, by the way, and you can find some of Matt's tunes on YouTube, and you've got shows coming up in the whole 9 yards. People have to. I'm of the opinion people have to see you play live.
Yeah,
you're a phenomenal live performer. I just stare at you when you play. We don't hear a lot of people. Some folks do, but you don't hear a lot of people use the word addiction when it comes to cannabis.
Yeah.
I had a cocaine addiction. Sure. I was addicted to meth. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had an opioid addiction for sure. Cannabis addiction, people kind of go, huh?
Yeah, it's a weird one because cannabis is it's so socially acceptable. It's so, it's not as serious as cocaine or heroin or meth. But the truth is that for me, I was a 30-year cannabis smoker, daily smoker coming out of high school. And when I decided to go down the route of quitting, I looked into what it meant to have a daily usage. And I realized that I really qualified as an addicted person. Like I was totally addicted. And so this is post-book, I might add. In the book, I'm still stoned every day.
Okay.
And then this past summer, so about 6 months ago, I decided to enter an addictions treatment therapy program. And I started learning about the way my addiction was impacting my relationship with my children and with my wife. The time I was taking, the time I was losing. It started making me realize that my daily withdrawal was creating emotions and energies that were negative for my family. So even though I was thinking that there was no harm to going outside and blazing a gram joint at 8:30 in the morning, the truth of the matter is it really impacted the way my 7-year-old felt about me, and like every single time I stepped outside, and I was smoking, 7, 8, 9 times a day. That's 20 minutes of time, that's lost time with my kids, all the games that I didn't play with my kids because I was outside smoking weed, You know, it's not the same thing as alcohol addiction or meth addiction, where you lose your capacity to engage or to operate. I was still making dinner, you know, getting kids to school in the morning, doing all those things.
Sure, writing great music, booking bands, running a business.
Doing all that stuff. But what I didn't realize was that my relationships and then just my own personal health were suffering too. So I'm not fully clean from cannabis yet. I'm still working on it.
Do you see yourself getting to a point where you never use cannabis again, where it's not a part of your life?
Yeah, I can see that. And I couldn't say that 6 months ago.
Do you, this might not be a responsible question, but it's a sincere one. Do you worry that will hamper or hinder your creative process at all?
No. I've realized that my creative process is something that I possess. Like, I'm a creative person, and drugs have no impact on it. I used to think that I had to smoke weed to make a cool guitar riff. You know, I used to think, like, let's smoke some joints and play guitar for an hour, come up with some cool stuff. And that might still happen, but creativity for me is an inherent thing I have with the way I see the world and the way I was raised and the questions I have about, you know, my community. That's where my creativity comes from. It doesn't come from drugs. Cannabis, you know, has a mind-freeing component. You know, it's a relaxing thing. It's in a lot of ways, it's a beautiful thing. But for me, it just became more negative than positive. And so, yes, now I can see a time where I'm actually a person who's totally free from cannabis. You know, I've got a friend who's like kind of my unofficial sponsor. He went through some addiction issues earlier in his life. And 6 months ago, he asked me if I could go a day without a joint. And my answer was, dude, I'm scared to do that. And when he heard me say that I was scared to do a day without weed, he was like, wow, like, your level of addiction is really quite significant.
Yeah.
But, you know, I finally did do a day. You know, I started by doing a morning. You know, like, I started by not smoking dope before 10 a.m. Then I tried not smoking dope before noon. Then I kind of kept managing it. And then eventually I got to a month off, and 2 months and 3 months and 4 months off. And then this November I've fallen off the wagon. You know, I've smoked again. You know, so addiction isn't just like a one-trick pony where you're like, well, I'm gonna quit, and now I'm quit, and you know, that's that. You know, we all have continually in our lives hills and valleys. You know, like, there's moments of success and there's moments of failure.
Strikes and gutters,
totally,
as the dude says.
And I mean, like, you know, coming out of October, I was like doing great. I was hitting home runs, you know, I was clean for months at a time. And then something happened in November. And maybe, you know, it was the 10th anniversary of my dad's passing. Maybe it was my decision, along with Barney, to not do the Caribou Express tour this year. So I didn't do the Barney Bentall tour this past year because of just the mental health issues we've discussed. But seeing my friends on stage without me with them, you know, that was a blow. You know, that was hard to accept. I knew it was the right thing for me, but it was hard to accept. So maybe some of those things factored in, and then I decided to smoke again. I'm not sure. But I can say that even the smoking I've done in this month is like 7 or 8 times less than it was back in June. So I'm in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an addictions counselor therapist, but I will say I've interviewed enough of them and spoken with enough of them. And the one thing they'll say is you got to be kind and gracious to yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, I mean, I think that people, whether you call it a relapse or back, you know, off, is it on the wagon or off the wagon?
I never know if
it's on the wagon or off the wagon.
I'm near a wagon.
It's like bi-weekly. What's bi-weekly? Twice a week? Every 2 weeks?
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure about this either.
But let's just say this, you know, like, you know, people in the Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power, you know, T-Mac D says sometimes the addiction isn't the substance necessarily, but the ritual around using the substance that you become addicted to. I think that's a really intuitive comment. Darren says, I think you certainly can be dependent on cannabis. He says, I don't know if that's necessarily the same as addicted. I mean, I don't know. We might be splitting hairs on that one. Travis says, if your vice of choice interferes in your life in a way that's not comfortable for you or is actively harmful to your life, then it's time to quit for sure. He says, no matter what the substance is. I mean, I have friends of mine from way back in the day that were addicted to exercise, and they use that word. Like, now they use that word, addicted. 2 of them. People can be addicted to food. People can be addicted to pornography. You can be addicted to gambling. You can be addicted to online shopping. Like, I don't think that we need to debate whether or not the word. I'm just saying, like, in my circles, and you know, I'm a regular cannabis user. You know, but I don't hear a lot of people describe it as an addiction. We talk about people that are chronic. We talk about potheads.
Yeah.
We talk about the wake and bake lifestyle. You know, the first thing you do when you wake up is smoke or whatever. But you don't hear people use the word addiction as much. And I'm here to say I'm not afraid of that conversation, and maybe we should use that word more frequently.
Well, for me, it kind of goes to you're talking about the importance of talking about men's mental health. Cannabis addiction is real. I mean, obviously it's real. And a lot of people are afraid to talk about it because you feel like a loser. You know, like, well, at least if you're addicted to heroin, you're really fucked up. You know, like if you're addicted to alcohol, well, that's alcohol. I mean, it's the most powerful thing. You know, if you're addicted to one of the serious drugs, it's respectable. But if you're just addicted to weed, which you can buy at the store, you're addicted to that? What kind of loser are you? But the truth of the matter is I'm not a loser. I'm just a guy who started smoking weed at 17 and never quit. And then for me, you know, when legalization kicked in, my consumption increased dramatically because it was so much easier to get. You know, and so
come on, you a musician with 25 years was having a hard time buying weed before? I don't think so.
It wasn't. I was able to find it for sure.
It was just staring you in the face everywhere.
Well, it's literally 750 meters from my front door is a store. Yeah. You know, so I go for a 10-minute walk and I go buy a joint. You know, like. Do
you think it should be legal, or do you think it should be recriminalized?
No, I totally think it should be legal. I'm a big supporter of the legalization of it, and even though I've had a hard time around it, I still support the legalization of it. I mean, my journey isn't everybody's journey, and I mean, the war on drugs is a whole other crazy thing we could discuss. But I mean, for me, you know, like weed's been a part of my journey, and I talk about it a lot in the book. You know, like I talk a lot about how much I'm smoking. Though in the book, I'm kind of, I have to write a second book actually just to talk about all this stuff. But in the book, I'm still like, I even say I'll never imagine a day where I go without weed, because I wasn't there yet. You know? And that's just it. Like you have to find your own time and space. You know, addiction only starts to get fixed when you can acknowledge your situation, you know, no matter what it is. And so it took some time for me to realize where I was, you know, and then when I did, I decided to start making some changes.
Noob Try Again is in our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider. Noob, first of all, we saw your $10 contribution to our super chat in honor of Willy Grant. We sure appreciate that. Noob says he's pro-cannabis, says that said, it is definitely not for everybody. He says, I've met many people, it was a really bad fit for them. He says it affects everybody differently, like biologically, like anything else, drugs, food, whatever. It can definitely be an addiction. Tracy says, I'm not a user, but I don't understand how people can use cannabis and drive. I see it so much. Short answer, they shouldn't be, Tracy, and I'm not trying to sort of preach, but I just think it's obvious you shouldn't be, and obviously you can get a DUI if you do. But it's prompting a conversation here. Cheryl outside here is in our chat, and she just says, honest, real talk about drug use. How awesome.
Seriously, it's like, that's one of the cool things about this show, too. But it is like... people have just been afraid to talk about so many things, you know, whether it's bipolar, whether it's cannabis addiction, whether it's like whatever it is, you know, we are all dealing with our challenges, you know, like everybody I know is dealing with a challenge of some sort. And so when we can be open and honest about our struggles with each other, you know, people don't think less of me when they find out I'm addicted to weed. They're just like, oh yeah, I always knew you smoked a ton of weed. You know, people don't think less of me because I have bipolar. A lot of people say, wow, I never would have guessed with you. You know, well, yeah, I mean, I don't strive to make you like meet me and guess that I have bipolar. It's not, you know, it's not my opening line. Hey, nice to meet you. I've got bipolar, you know, but it doesn't make me less of a guy, you know, it doesn't make me less of a man. Of course, it doesn't make me like a worse, you know, person. We all just have our struggles, and we've got to get through them the best way we can.
This guy right here is a beauty, John Hicks, that produces this show, because I've seen...
I thought you were going to say this guy's addicted to weed.
No, you're not.
I immediately call me.
You and I have. I'm
not.
No. You and I have never smoked weed even once together, have we? I don't think so. Maybe way back.
But I went through probably most of my 20s is very hazy. So
yeah,
but there just came a day where it had more negative effects than positive for me, whereas before, like, I don't consider myself an artist like Matt here, but, you know, I'm a DJ. So it helped me creatively and musically and connecting with crowds when they were, you know, involved with alcohol and other substances at events and clubs. But there came a day where a little bit of like paranoia and anxiety just became more than the pleasure side. So I just kind of, I switched it off. But, I'll engage, occasionally.
But I've seen you even like in this, like even in the context of our work environment or our work relationship, like you remember you went off coffee for like whatever it was, quite some time. I think
it was anxiety factor.
A couple months or something like that. But just like Matt's talking about, you're not afraid to like try something different in pursuit of becoming your best self.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm not as into, to be honest with you. But I see some people
you
in
stick
here.
to things.
Well, I have a real commitment.
You're not a quitter.
I'm not a quitter. But like people in here are saying, how about this from Lester? Welcome, Lester, to our live chat. Says the easiest way to find out if you're addicted to something, try to go 2 weeks without it. In a lot of circumstances, I think if you go 2 weeks without something and you're able to get over that hump, you probably find, not to say that it may never prove to be a challenge again, but you remind yourself that you can do something without it. Like for you, when you quit smoking before 8 or before 10 a.m., before noon or before 2, it probably got easier and easier and easier with every passing day. Not to say that if your next door neighbor's ripping a bong and you smell it, that you're not going to maybe want to get in on it, but like easier and easier every day?
Yeah, I think so, because the work you do is cumulative, right? And now for the last 6 months, I've gone 5 of those months totally clean. So if I look at my need to quit weed again, because I do need to quit weed again, but this time I'm only like, I'm a guy who's smoking 1 joint a day, not 7 to 10 joints a day.
Yeah.
And so like quitting 1 joint a day is going to be a lot easier than it was quitting 7 joints a day.
I love what you said about your 7-year-old, and that's on your radar, man. That's just being a good dad. That's being a good person. Ms. KD in our live chat says, congratulations, 97 days sober from alcohol today. Fantastic. She says, I like a gummy here and there because she's been in chronic pain for 4 years without diagnosis. How frustrating. Says, I can't take anti-inflammatories because they give me an ulcer. I mean, for some people, cannabis is a solution to some medical ailments, but for others, like Darren pointing out here, says cannabis can be pretty dangerous. He says people do drive high. It can be a trigger for mental illness. It can have long-term effects on the brain, especially for young people. I mean, we know that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, even for me as a bipolar person, like, cannabis isn't the thing I need. Like it's not what I need. There's just no getting around it. So, but that's the journey that I think I'm on and that we're all on, is like kind of moving towards greater self-awareness, moving towards places of greater wellness and greater health. It's not, no one gives you a blueprint for good living. Like you kind of make up your best guesses and you find yourself one day and you're like, oh, I'm almost 50 and I have kids and a job and like, what am I doing? And the truth is, like, you're probably doing a lot of things right, and then maybe there's a few things that we all need to a bit of work on, and that's just the living experience, like that's exactly the case for everybody. Everyone's got a struggle, everybody's got a journey, and I think that's kind of, just to bring it back to my book a little bit, that's one of the things that I was excited to do, is just to share my story, because like I've done enough weird things. I've had enough friends tell me you should write a book, so I finally just did. But in it, one of the kind of, I guess, moving passages in the book is that, like, I'm coming home from some function and my car gets stolen, and I write about it in real time, and I have a total breakdown, and I write it. I write through my breakdown. It's just me just cursing my head off for a few pages, but then I go through a night and a morning of just like utter, self-contempt and like so angry at myself. I've let we're one car family. I've let our family car get stolen. And then the next day at noon, the police find my car and it's fine. And they're like, someone just drove home and then they left it in an alley. You can come get it. And I go get my car and it's just fine. It wasn't dented. It wasn't damaged. They left the change in the jar.
Wow.
I know. A guy literally just drove home in the rain. But so I had this full failure in real time in the book. But at the end of that chapter, I realized that I'm not a bad person. Even though I've just said, like, I'm an idiot, I'm a loser, I'm a dummy, I can't even get home with my car in one piece. But then, because we all have that moment, but then the nice part of it is there's a bit of resolution where it's, in fact, in this case, no, I'm not, like, those things aren't true. Those are just the way I reacted in the moment. We all have those struggles. And if we can kind of, like we said earlier, be kind to ourselves and give ourselves that space, then there's often a chance for reconciliation. There's a chance for rehabilitation. There's a chance for wellness at the end of our struggles, no matter what our journey is about.
I'm super proud of you, man. I didn't think we were going to talk about cannabis for like 25 minutes, but I'm glad we did.
I'm open.
I always say to people, one of the things that I just so appreciate about this show and this sort of platform that we have, or the way that we do it, is that conversations can be as long as we want them to be. We can say whatever needs to be said. We've got an audience that's engaged and empathetic and unafraid to share their own opinions, and we tend to attract guests that bring great value to conversation like you. And it means a lot that you made the trip up here to join us in studio. We knew we wanted that.
Yeah,
I wanted to look into your eyes and welcome you here in particular. I want to direct people to your website, mattmasters.ca, and this is probably the best place for them to connect with you. Obviously, they can learn more about curbside concerts, learn a little bit more about you, check out some of your videos. You've got some shows upcoming, including like this weekend and for the rest of this month.
Yeah,
for people, in particular in Western Canada.
This all in Alberta right now. I'm in Red Deer and Cochrane this weekend, so that's the 6th and 7th, and then I'm in Edmonton on the 27th. I'm actually off Calgary till mid-January, so still taking a bit of time off still.
Good for you, though. That's good. Where are you playing 27th in Edmonton?
Oh, it's in a...
I should have asked your agent.
I should have asked my agent too.
Yes,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it'll be on my website.
Okay, good stuff. People can check out the website. You can order Matt's book, Manic Memoir, A Bipolar Journey in Music. Just follow the links. I know it's on Amazon, but you can also follow those links and check out his music as well. His brand new album, Bergener. Beautifully done, man. And thanks for keeping it real right here on Real Talk.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. A wonderful Matt Masters. I wanted to remind you, and we're talking about, young people, these formative years, and oftentimes we recognize that young people, let's say between the ages of 18 and 24, can fall through the cracks. We're talking a lot right now about supports and people's journeys, and you know how proud we are at Real Talk. We've been telling you this month to be partnering with UCAN Youth Services. I want to tell you a little bit about what they're doing for vulnerable young people, 18 to 25 years old, a nonprofit charitable organization based out of the city of Edmonton, dedicated to helping these young people out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. They're doing a number of amazing things to help tell their story. They've got their Relentless podcast, hosted, of course, by our beautiful friend Kyle Dubé, who we tragically lost this year. You can check out the feature to Kyle on their website, ucan.ca. Nobody cared more or had a bigger vision about helping young people than Kyle Dubé himself. You can also learn about their comedy nights. And if you're an employer that oftentimes is looking for skilled and ready to work entry-level positions to be filled, this is a perfect fit. The team at UCAN would love to forge a connection with you to build that relationship and ultimately help young people onto a path of economic independence. You can find more details at ucan.ca. If you're looking for a leg up on the employment side of life, if you have experience as an electrician, if you're an apprentice ready to enter the job market, maybe you're a salesperson, heck, maybe you're the best HR professional that your current company has ever employed, but you're looking for something different. Kubi Renewable Energy is scaling up their operations in Western Canada, operating out of 4 different headquarters: Kamloops, Lethbridge, Calgary, and Edmonton. They're the busiest solar installer in Western Canada, and they're hiring through the winter months so that they can get you all trained up and ready to go come spring. Kubi Energy is young, growing, and reshaping Canada's energy portfolio. They keep the pace fast, the beer cold, and they're hiring today at kubienergy.ca/careers. Speaking of jobs that are important, we've been telling you about this Edmonton for Everyone campaign at edmontonforeveryone.ca. These are the thousands and thousands of members of CSU 52, that's Civic Service Union 52. These are the people that are staffing the libraries and the rec centers. These are the people that are answering the 911 calls. You know that CSU members answered more than 820,000 requests for emergency service over the past year? 820,000 911 calls? Well, they're asking you to help them encourage Edmonton City Council to start making smart budget decisions. Now is the time. Budget deliberations are underway, and the city of Edmonton is at a crucial crossroads with the choices that they're making today shaping the future for all of us. CSU 52 is asking for your help to encourage council to budget for the things that matter. You can learn details at edmontonforeveryone.ca. And all this talk about Jasper on the show, I want to remind you about the good work that the team at Complete Care Restoration is doing. They've got teams deployed in the national park right now, helping residents business owners get back on their feet. This is what they've been doing for more than 25 years. This is a family-owned business that started in a garage. 25 years later, they're still restoring properties and rebuilding peace of mind. Complete Care Restoration works directly with your insurance company, so you don't have to deal with that hassle. You can get set to get your life back in order with the help of Complete Care Restoration. As always, we welcome your feedback to shows like this. Oftentimes are the ones that'll glean the most meaningful responses, whether it's your family's battle with ALS, maybe momentum that you've seen on a fundraising side due to the connections made on social media. Maybe it's talking about cannabis or bipolar disorder. Maybe you just love Matt Masters' music. We want to hear from you to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Coming up on Thursday's show, that's the 5th of December. It's going to be an early edition of The Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. I'm hosting a private event Friday, so Thursday, December 5th, our final episode of this week, and you won't want to miss it. We're getting right back into the trenches, talking politics, including an in-studio visit from the federal health minister. We're hoping to speak to their provincial counterpart as well. It's an episode of Real Talk you won't want to miss. Thanks for being part of this one, friends. One love.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator